you know, nostalgia racing is like just a second hit to all us old timers that have been around, and it's just like going through the hoops again. Nothing's changed. It's all there. The sounds, the smell, the feeling, it's all right there. Nostalgia racing is the old cars that we ran years ago, back in the 60s and 70s. And like street rodding, they have come back to become very, very good cars to race because you don't have to get into the high dollar aspect of drag racing. Plus the cars are fun. They're not out there running 300 miles an hour, but for the people that know them and recognize them, they run just fine speeds. And this car behind me is my 33 Willis. It's a kind of an answer to our nostalgic drag racing. We had been on tour for a couple of years with K.S. Pittman's car and with the Stonewoods and Cook car, and when we got done with that, the nostalgia was still there, so we decided to build this car.
Dan Dooley, doing the driving. Johnny Rope's car. Gary Hart.
The only thing I can tell you is that I've been doing it since I was 16, over 30 years, and it's just in the blood. It's to take a machine like this and create this living, breathing machine, and to see that machine live and start and run, it just becomes a personality of itself. It just becomes a part of you, and it just is just like 30-weight motor oil coursing through your veins.
Just brings you back to a different time when drag racing was a lot simpler and a lot easier to work on. The average guy could work on his car before they got all the electronics and all the special equipment and everything. It was a much simpler time when people put their own cars together and did a lot of the work on them themselves rather than just go to a chassis builder, an engine shop, and just pick up one of these and one of those and just slap it together and run. One big difference between the older cars of 30 years ago and the ones today are the tires. The new tires grip a lot better and they're a lot more consistent, and it makes it a lot easier to launch a car very hard without, slipping them.
flashback time for me, definitely flashbacks. It's just, I come out and I see cars that basically, it gives me chills to see them run. It's just like I step back in time. These cars that they consider nostalgia were the basis of this sport. It was the base right there from which this sport started.
No, we don't have you speaking. We have the hot rod Hudson, we have the hot rod Williams. We need the hot rod Lincoln.
Nostalgia is something that old racers that I know, they love to come because they basically cannot afford to race now in the high-tech era, but it's basically they can step back to the era that they enjoyed and that they had so much fun, and they relive their past. It's a way to relive your past, nostalgia is.
I'm Gary Heyman. I'm here at the Good Guys Meet, driving my 1923 Buick powered roadster with a 23 body on it, and we're running great. We ran into 9.8. First time we put this Buick straight 8 into the 9s. We like to run back the way we did in the 60s. We run the old engines, nothing newer than 1954 from the group I belong to. I belong to a group called the Flatheaders and Inliners. And we like to hold our engines to be older than 54, so that we consider the 60 racing heads up, old engines to be nostalgic.
It's a time warp. You step back in time. If you enjoy cars in any shape or form, you have to see these cars because they are history. When these cars go down the track, they're moving pieces of history. Basically, your seat of your pants guys were the early guys that gave it their all, and I saw a lot of good drivers drive a lot of junk, and I saw a lot of bad drivers drive a lot of good cars. So basically, it was a blending. It's like driving on ice, tires smoking on either side of you. You have a big blower sitting in front of you, and then there's oil being chucked in your face at about 190 as you approach the finish line traps. Now that's living for those guys, but not me. pure. It was a pure, just pure drag racing at its best. You go out and buy yourself a $98 Chrysler block. You put nitro in it. You put a blower on it. If you had a brother, it was a requirement to build a top fuel dragster in that era in Los Angeles. You had to own a race car if you had a brother, and it had to be a fuel dragster. And it was just fun, fun, fun.
Was built in 1958 to run the Nationals in Detroit. At that time, it was powered by a 387 Oldsmobile. And then the car slowly went from to Chevrolet power, and it went from a C alter to a double B alter. And then we ran it up until, I would say, approximately the late 60s, 69 probably, and then the car was put away and sort of dismantled, and things were sold off of it, and it sat for a while, and then it got sold to a friend of mine. I kept my eye on the car for probably 15 years. Finally one day we got an idea we were going to go buy the car back if it was for sale. We bought it back and we started restoring it basically for a street route event. And then the nostalgic drag racing come out again, and we just decided, hey man, it's a race car, let's go racing again.
We need junior fuel.
I think nostalgia is more and more becoming a part and parcel of what we do. When we had to concentrate as heavily as we did, and I'm talking about NHRA now, in trying to maintain and organize and protect drag racing, we more or less left the earlier model cars, and the people that got out of racing came back in sort of in the lurch. Fortunately, in the local levels at our tracks that are member tracks out there, they still have a place to race. But I think in time that you will find that nostalgia vehicles will become a bigger part of our major program, more than just parading and being an exhibition.
like reliving the 50s and 60s all over again. I mean, a lot of the cars out here are the same. A lot of the people are the same. A lot of the history of the old days are here. A lot of the history makers are here. A lot of the history making cars are here. So it really is. It's kind of like we're frozen in time, you know, and that all these things could be happening 25 years ago, just as if they're happening today.
Yes, this type of racing is what Maple Grove started on. 1993, this is our 31st year in racing, and a lot of these cars kind of fit right in with what we ran for the last 31 years. It's almost a deja vu type feeling.
All the innovations that a lot of drivers gave a lot for, including their lives, have basically conjured into some of the safest things you'll find in automotive sport. Came from the so-called nostalgia era, which basically contributed to the present-day top fuel, funny car, safety, and basically having the corporations come into drag racing has put it on another threshold, or a plateau. It's elevated to a different, just a different realm. It's surrealistic now.
Slingshot dragster, well, basically it was designed in the 60s when they hung the driver over the rear part of the axle to get more, I presume, more weight on the back tires. So they, I guess the name was coined by maybe Mickey Thompson. Well, it's a 165-inch front-engine dragster, Slingshot. It's built by Fran Licata of Lockport, New York, back in 1964, and it was run basically in a top fuel, AA fuel wars back in the 60s. You have your basic 392 Hemi. We run it 30 over on the blower, 30% over. It's just hat nozzles, no port nozzles, low budget again. Back to the driver's compartment, we run a 2-disc slider clutch, and it's high gear only, which means there's no transmission in the car. It's just the clutch is in, it's neutral, out, it's drive. You have your handbrake, and you have a fuel shutoff, and your fire bottle, which is in the driver's compartment, and this is to fire your fire bottle for the front, and you have your parachute handle right on your strap on your seat belts. So you pull the laundry out when you get to the end of the pass, and that slows you down. As you can see, we got our barbells here. This is used for ballast. Some guys clamp steel bars to the front. Well, we kind of have a low budget operation here, so we just kind of clamp these our barbells, sir. Moving up a little more, you got your fuel tank, and our overflow. After we do our burnout, sometimes a little fuel spills, so we run a little beer can here. It kind of catches the excess. As you move up closer, you have all your feed lines, and you have your fire bottle. We're required to run 10 pounds of halon, which we run 5 pounds on the front of the car, which feeds the motor, and then another 5 pounds feeds the driver in case of a fire or anything. One fuel pump. It's a Hillborn 175 as compared to the top fuel cars of today. They run 2 dual fuel pumps. We're limited to 1. That's all we're allowed to run. Of course, to go along with the high-tech operation, you've got the high-tech trailer.
Hi, I'm Rod Sabry from Millers, Maryland. This is my 1957 Pro Street Corvette. At a 792, 170 miles an hour, this makes this car the world's fastest street legal car. This car is kind of neat because when we say street legal, we mean street legal. We ran that time in street trim through the mufflers. It has a 600 cubic inch Charlie Garrett motor, and it's one carburetor, and it does have a power glide transmission, which is kind of unusual for a car like this. So we want to stay with the power glide because it's more streetable than like a Lenco. It's not going to be as quick as a Lenco transmission, but we feel like we make up for it in other areas. It has a 9-inch Ford rear end, pretty standard, and it's a real streetable deal. It's fast and really streetable. It doesn't overheat. We've got a big radiator in the car and several sponsors, and they help us out somewhat.
Basically run here is an ET bracket race. In other words, I say I can run that quarter mile in 10 seconds. You say you can run it in 10 and a half. So I put 10 seconds on my window, you put 10 and a half on yours. You get a half a second head start on me. When we get to the end, we should be right together. The heads-up class comprises cars made up of junior fuelers, top fuelers, AA gas supercharged, and we have a street rod heads-up class where we're usually Willys, and they'll have big block Chevys or Pontiacs or Oldsmobiles in them. The slingshot is actually the shape of the dragster, and it's where the man sits back behind the wheels. Like if you put a rock in a slingshot, that's where he would be. And, you know, he would be back behind the wheels, and that was what made the word slingshot. digger is basically the same thing as a rail. Digger's a dragster. And you know, that dragster can be a top fuel dragster, a junior fuel dragster, an alcohol dragster. We run, in some events, if we get a lot of them, we run what they call nostalgia dragster. And these are basically short wheelbase cars, short wheelbase, older style dragsters.
Safety factors, I go through a tech inspection that is very, very safety conscious. They have to check everything, what I have, what apparel I have. I wear a fireproof suit, the brakes, they check everything out. They want to know how you react when there is a problem. You have to take a test where you get out of the car, quickly shut it down, and get out of the car as if it was really to happen. When I take off, it feels real good, I'll tell you that. Down the other end, the speed doesn't bother me. It's that initial launch when you take off that really is a real thrill.
Guys got into nostalgia racing basically for a couple reasons. One, to put on a better quality show and better drag racing to the fans out there, and the other reason is just there's a lot of nostalgia cars out there to be seen, and we just want everybody to see them. Our shows are getting bigger, and there's new cars being built, and there's new standards, you know, for the nostalgia crowd. So NHRA has stepped in to make sure that the cars are safer. The chassis are updated and sonic tested, so they're basically up to the 90s standards, but look like, you know, 50s and 60s.
just a lot of fun. Everybody relates to it. I mean, they relate to the older cars. It's interesting to see the old cars that look like a car instead of a new modern Pro Mod car that you see. I mean, everybody sees those all the time.